If you're looking to buy a stacked NBA 2K account with max badges and more, visit sportstmb.com. He has been in the community for years and has hundreds of reviews. Click the first link in the description to get your account today.
Before this video starts, if you enjoy this video, there are many more like it already on the channel, with many more like it to come in the future, so subscribe. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would really appreciate it. Also, drop a like real quick. It takes 1 second and it makes a world of difference for me. I upload almost daily on this channel, so if you're looking for some consistent sports talk while in quarantine, this is the place for it. Today, I wanted to talk about some of the craziest almost trades in NBA history, meaning trades that were right about to happen, but for some reason or another, they did not happen. Trades are possibly my favorite aspect of the NBA, talking about how the trades work for each team, why a team was right or wrong to make a deal, who won, things like that. But I find it especially fun to look back at old trades of the past and really see where it led, down to the last detail, the domino effect that's caused by one move down to the second round pick. But most fun of all to me is looking back at some what-if trades that almost happened and seeing how that would have affected the players involved, the teams involved, and eventually the league as a whole. So, let's talk about it. The first trade I want to go over just quickly because I made a whole video on it not too long ago, like literally I don't even think a week ago, but it's so underrated that I think it is worthy of being mentioned again for those who have not seen that video. Basically in 2010, the Bulls had a deal in place to send Luol Deng to the Los Angeles Clippers in exchange for the 9th pick in the 2010 draft, which could have been one of Gordon Hayward or Paul George. Now, on the surface level, this trade isn't anything that crazy. Sure, it involves a current top 10 player in the league, but it's nothing insane. However, the implications of this trade go far beyond the trade itself. Luol Deng at this point was a young two-way player with a lot of upside. He would eventually become an all-star. But he was making $10 million a year, which for 2010 was a pretty significant chunk of money. So as a result, they needed to trade him to clear some salary. So as a result, this move ended up being more of a salary dump than anything else. A salary dump so the Bulls would have the cap space to sign LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, with those three joining a team with Derrick Rose, Paul George or Gordon Hayward, and Joakim Noah. Yeah, that team could have actually existed. If you want to see some more details about how that would have completely changed everything in the NBA, I have a whole video on it I uploaded a couple days ago, and it is in the card above if I remember to do this. Now let's talk about another trade that also involved the Chicago Bulls, and that is how Scottie Pippen was almost traded to the Seattle Supersonics in 1994. The deal was going to be Pippen to the Sonics for Shawn Kemp, trading an offensive-minded star for a defensive-minded star. Now, as for the actual deal, the implications on the Sonics end are pretty basic. They immediately become the greatest defense ever, or at the very least, the greatest perimeter defense ever. I would hate to be a guard that has to score on one of Gary Payton or Scottie Pippen. But then on the Bulls end of it, this is a lot bigger than just Shawn Kemp, because as legend has it, Scottie Pippen was one of the main factors in convincing Jordan to return to basketball, specifically with the Bulls. Him, alongside Ron Harper, took Jordan's interest in returning and made it a reality. I'm not so sure that Shawn Kemp, with him having zero history with Michael Jordan, could have accomplished that same thing. And as a result, Jordan might not return, which means the Sonics definitely win the '96 finals because Pippen was better than Kemp, and they wouldn't have had to face the '96-72 win Bulls. Instead, they would probably face the young Orlando Magic, who I think lose that series to the Sonics, but it would probably be close. But if Jordan did come back, this would be the only time in his career that Jordan played with not only an offensive star, but a big man that's an offensive star. So I'd be interested to see how that would work. It'd be especially interesting to see how a pick-and-roll heavy player in Shawn Kemp would fare in the triangle. Now let's look at a more recent trade that happened back in 2014. I actually remember this rumor going around and thinking something that is pretty damn funny in hindsight. The trade was Kevin Love to the Golden State Warriors along with Kevin Martin in exchange for Klay Thompson and David Lee. And my 14-year-old self, who was newly into basketball for about 2 years, pretty casual at this point, when I saw this trade rumor, I thought, who the fuck is Klay Thompson? Which I learned in the following season with the Warriors dynasty, but I probably would not have if this trade went down. Klay moving to Minnesota would just be depressing for him. That's 3 rings and the reputation of being at minimum the 4th best shooter ever thrown away to play in the land of cold depression and horrible basketball. But then for Golden State's end, Kevin Love was a good basketball player. I feel like people forget that too much. However, he does not fit what Golden State was trying to do at all. If this move goes down, Curry does not have his splash brother, Draymond Green does not get to start and break out as a versatile defensive 4 with his playmaking, and the whole fast-paced Warriors heavy 3-point offense would not be nearly as emphasized with a post player and rebounding power forward. This just fucks up the whole identity of the Golden State Warriors. And then even for the Minnesota Timberwolves and Kevin Love, this is a loss for them as well. I don't think this Warriors team wins a championship, so Love doesn't win the ring that he does in 2016. And then for the Wolves, Klay was better than rookie Andrew Wiggins, and even if there's a doubt that he could create his own shot, having a playmaker in Ricky Rubio would have made him more of a positive than Wiggins regardless. So as a result, the Wolves would not have been as bad, and they would not have been in the position to draft Karl Anthony Towns in the 2015 draft, so they miss out on a potential superstar player. So this is a lose-lose-lose-lose trade that luckily did not go down. The only teams that really get a positive out of this trade were not the teams involved, but rather the OKC Thunder and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Next is one of the more underrated ones here that I don't know how it's not mentioned more, considering how it affects the career of LeBron James. In 2009, the Phoenix Suns agreed to a pretty stupid lopsided trade where they would be sending Amari Stoudemire to the Cavaliers in exchange for J.J. Hickson, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, and a pick. As I said, the Suns agreed to this deal, which means that yes, it was the Cavaliers that pulled out of this one. Why? Because they didn't want to let go of J.J. Hickson, who was averaging a whopping 8 points and 5 rebounds that year, and he was out of the league before he was even 30. So, that was a fuck up. Amari, alongside LeBron James, could have taken the Cavs to the NBA Finals. I think LeBron with a guy like Amari is enough to beat the 2010 Boston Celtics. But because the Cavs did not pull this trade, instead, LeBron left in free agency. So by not pulling this trade, not only did the Cavs potentially miss out on making a Finals appearance, but they also missed out on potentially re-signing LeBron James. Now, this would have probably been bad for LeBron because Amari's knees turned into pudding by 2011, but this is a deal that definitely could have had massive implications in the career of the second best player of all time, positive or negative. But now let's talk about the final trade, the trade that is in the thumbnail, and in my opinion, and I really don't think it's up for debate, the biggest almost trade ever. This trade is the deal that the Portland Trail Blazers handed out on a silver platter to the Houston Rockets in the 1984 draft. The trade was the second pick in the draft, as well as Clyde Drexler in exchange for Ralph Sampson. Drexler at this point was not much, which makes passing on this trade a little bit more redeeming. He was the 14th pick in the previous year's draft, and he only averaged 7 points a game, but he did show a lot of upside, and he was a lottery pick for a reason. But what is the biggest factor here is the second pick in that draft, because as I hope we would all know after the Last Dance documentary, Michael Jordan was drafted in the 1984 draft with the 3rd overall pick. And Houston in this draft had the first pick, which they used to draft Hakeem Olajuwon. Then 2nd overall, the Blazers ended up taking Sam Bowie because they needed a center. It's the whole reason that they attempted to trade for Ralph Sampson in the first place. But in the position of Houston, assuming they make this deal, they just drafted Hakeem number 1, so they don't need a center anymore. Which means they would draft Michael fucking Jordan. So that is the 2 best players of the 90s and the 7th best player of the 90s on the same team, all at a very young age. 2 of them being rookies and 1 just a sophomore. This would have easily been the greatest team of all time, and outside of fatigue or clashing egos, which are very well possible, I don't know how this team does not win 10 championships. Hakeem and Jordan as a duo is ridiculous enough, but throw in a guy who was already the best player on 2 teams that made the finals, and then it just gets absurd, especially considering the fact that Drexler was a good 3-point shooter, so he would play off of this perfectly. Now, as for why Houston did not end up doing this deal, well, Ralph Sampson was coming off of his rookie year where he averaged 20 and 10 and he was phenomenal, and he seemed like he could play power forward, which they eventually did with Hakeem. So as a result, a guy who averaged 7 points and the second pick in a draft that was not considered that amazing at the time was not enough to get my 20 and 10 rookie, which is somewhat understandable, but at the end of the day, they fucked up. This trade would have completely reshaped NBA history, and all I have to say about it is thank fuck it didn't happen as a Bulls fan, because it's already depressing enough as it is. I don't need the Bulls missing Michael Jordan and drafting Sam Bowie as well. That's just too much. But those are some of the craziest almost trades in NBA history. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.